consistency is a lonely road, and sometimes it can be a very hard road too. And why is that? Because it's simply linked to your why, not anyone else's why, your why. And if people don't have the same motivation as you do, well, that means you have to do it all by yourself. So today I had a little bit of a challenge. I got up this morning and I couldn't sit or stand for a long period of time. I was like, oh my God, my back. Like I said, consistency can be a hard road. It can be a lonely road. And again, this is linked to your why. When it comes to consistency, it's something that you want to do. It comes from your heart. It's something you have said to yourself, this is what I'm going to do. One of the things I really wanted to do is being able to get out there, create those videos, and show them to other people and do it so people can find me. I want to leave a legacy. I want people to know that it's okay to speak up, to speak out, and share their voice. And in order to create that legacy, I must have something out there. Otherwise, I cannot be found and people won't know about my message that it's okay to speak up, speak out, and share their voice. And, even today, I talked to someone and I realized again how important the art of communication is. And the art of communication can actually make or break your consistency. I can't make it any easier. I can't make it any more fun. It's just the way it is. But when you do understand the art of communication, and you do understand that people might have different motivations than you, then you can also understand that your why not necessarily has to be their why. But that doesn't mean that you cannot ask other people for support. So let's go down the list of um, ways that can help you to be consistent. But before I do want to get into what I talked about before. So this morning and yesterday already, I got up and I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do so. Fortunately, because I went to the physical therapist yesterday, he gave me a number of exercises, which I applied, and now things are a lot better right now. So that's a good one. And of course, I also did all the other stuff that was needed. These things, the physical things, it's not the first time that something physical has happened to me. Actually, it's the story of my life. My brother so delicately put it a couple of years ago. Ah, yeah, that's her again. She always has something, and that may be true. And but the result of it is that I wanted to explore why my body did the way it was acting the way it was. Why did it react the way it did? And as a result, I became a fitness instructor at some point in my life, and then a medical fitness instructor, and so on and on and on. And that's how the whole thing started when we are talking about leaving a legacy and coaching other people. So when it comes to communication, I I've worked for 20 years in the IT, give or take. And during those 20 years, I worked for big companies, a lot of big companies. And there's one thing that they have in common. Most big companies have reorganizations. So the first one actually was the one who sent people there. He, to companies who needed other people because they didn't have enough people around or they didn't have the knowledge. But all the other companies that followed, they dealt with reorganizations. And while I was working for the first one, I heard all the stories because I was being sent to all those companies who were dealing with people who were suffering. I can't say it any better from those reorganizations because they didn't know what to expect. They didn't know. Well, they didn't just well they didn't know what to expect, so they were sometimes doubtful, sometimes fearful, but the result was that I did learn about their dreams, their fears, and I had long conversations with them because these shifts could be long, especially during the night and in the weekends. Back then, I was already suffering or dealing with physical issues. I didn't know much about setting boundaries, but that came with due time. It was funny because earlier today I was watching an episode from Grey's Anatomy, and they were talking about burnout. Well, I've had my fair share of burnout. That's what happens when you do not stick to your own boundaries. Going back to leaving my legacy, I noticed that whenever I was planning on doing a challenge and I started postponing it, something would happen that made it impossible to do it anyway. I remember choking on something and no longer having a voice, which took me hours and hours to get back. That's not to compare it with what happened in January because then I lost it for almost a day on and off. If I look at me being on this show on Wednesdays, you might have noticed that, especially the last couple of weeks, I had an immense big eye here. I had red cheeks. Those weren't from sunburn. That was an allergy gone haywire. And it's been weeks before it finally normalized again. So I'm just listing a couple of things which have made it very hard for me to be consistent. But apart from the aching back, which I have today, and I have to say it's not bad right now. Apart from that, there are some other things involved, which have to do with your why and when you want to be consistent. Is it consistency? Is this consistency you are aiming for something you are doing on your own, or is it something you do with other people as well? And when you have support from other people, things will be easier. That's just the way it is. Because you can lean on one another. And if one doesn't know what to do, then the other one will come up with suggestions. That's what I love about going live with Michael from Wheels and Warriors on Monday. We both get to think about the topic and then we come up with a number of things we want to address, get in those things. We talk about the thumbnail, what to put on Instagram out there. And I love that collaboration. It's it makes me happy. And yeah, we are growing into the whole collaboration thing, and it's good. It's good because we both know why we want it. As for a number of things you can do, because I said it's not always easy. It can be a a hard and sometimes lonely road. The first thing which is important is to ask yourself why. Why do you want to do this? And actually, the golden rule behind the why is that you ask yourself 7 times the why. So for me, it's I want to be consistent, getting out there like every week. It's important for me that people know they can count on me, that I'm here. I said I was going to go live, so here I am. I'm live. Um, if possible, I try to do it at the same time every week. And it's not always possible on Monday, but normally it is on Wednesdays. And it's also one of the reasons why sometimes I have to start it even when I'm waiting on someone else. It's the way it is because you cannot confuse the people who are counting on me. That's you, viewers out there. So the why, if I continue on, is not about just me being consistent, wanting to get out there weekly. It also has to do with how reliable am I? How do I have people trust me? But it's if you go way deeper, it's about being me wanting to get a message across. And I talked about it at the beginning of this life. That message has to do with the importance of people having a voice, that they are allowed to speak up and to speak out. And we know that's not that normal. Last week at the Freedom Festival in Rotterdam, I went out there and I did a number of interviews, short interviews with people. Some young, some a little bit older, men, women. And one of the things they realized was with everything going on right now in the Ukraine, it's not that normal to have freedom of speech. I mean, we've grown up thinking we are allowed to have freedom of speech, but is it that normal? Well, apparently not. So, continuing on, I have been working with clients for over a decade now. And in the time that I've been working with those clients, I I got to experience, how do I say it mildly? I don't know if I can say it mildly. It started with the little things having to do with the physical stuff. Also because I had become a massage therapist, but in due time it was about um, work, life choices, and then at some point people came by and we started talking about, oh, what are those marks on your arm? And I heard about cutting yourself with a razor blade to take away the pain. Somewhere in due time, I talked to people with addictions, how they dealt with it. I got to talk to people who were on the brink of stepping out, and one actually did at some point. And then we're talking about a whole new way of looking at life and what's normal. What all of them had in common was the need to be understood, the need to be able who they are or want to be, the need to be embraced when it comes to authenticity, but especially the need to be heard, to be seen, be understood. And of course, there's a lot more going on, especially when people say, I can deal with this anymore. And a lot has to do with doubts. People having doubts about themselves, about what they're doing. And unfortunately, we live in a world where people are rushed. And also, we don't learn to communicate at school. Yes, we learn languages, but we don't learn to actually look at one another and figure out what the other actually is saying to us. And we also do not learn to understand what the other one is trying to get across. That make life a little bit complicated. Well, a lot complicated. So, getting back to my why, I've always been the old one out. It started as early as going to school, um, being the one with the black hair and the dark brown eyes in a world where people were blonde with blue eyes. I was bullied as early as in kindergarten. You name it, and I've got a list um, where I just didn't fit in. On top of that, I became a metalhead. That seems to be pretty common around people. You have experienced some sort of trauma. Um, I'm not sure. I didn't do any statistics on it, but apparently it does seem to resonate with people like me. So there were only four in high school, and we dressed a certain way. Some people could recognize us. And of course, that's normal. You're trying to find your identity when you're at that age, when you're an adolescent. Some words, they are always very difficult for me. And, you know, that's what I did too. And we just had, uh, we just had these satellite connections. So I was able to watch Sky Channel, later on MTV. So I dressed like the bands were dressing, including all the scarves and all that stuff. And no, not the blue hair, not back then. But yes, to leopard hands and all that stuff. So when it comes to why, I know what it's to be on your own, to be left out, to be the old one out. And I also know that when people actually understand you, things can be very different. But it's so important to be understood. So when it comes to inclusion, I understand inclusion so very well. And I've had clients, you know, ADHD, borderline, autism, all the ones who didn't feel heard, understood, didn't understand how they were ticking, what others were expecting from them. And when I first heard the word inclusion, I was like, what's inclusion? And then I realized, oh, but that's me. I know about inclusion. I know what it feels like. And I know what it's like not to be heard, not to be helped, not to be supported. So let me be the one to help them and get the support that they need. So that's what I'm doing nowadays. And I'm not just doing it locally anymore. I'm doing it globally. It's one of the reasons why I switched to doing everything online, over the phone, on Zoom, whatever. And here you are, what you need. The second thing you can do is know your plans as in link to your why. And probably all of you have heard about vision boards. I usually call them future vision boards. You can call them dream boards. But on those boards is listed what it is you would like to do with your life, what you would like to accomplish. And sometimes some big dreams might be very big, and other times they just might be doable. But you won't know until you try. And if correct, those dreams and those future plans should be in the back of your mind all the time. So you don't actually have to look at your vision board as long as you remember what it is all about. So before you go to sleep, talk to yourself. What did I do today? What did I do to work towards my dreams, to work towards my goals? Was I consistent? There we go again, consistency. And When you get up, think about your intent. What's your intention? What can you do today to make it work? The third thing would be commitment. So when you set that intention, you're basically saying, I'm committed to doing this, that, and the other. Again, which could be linked to your vision board, which is linked to your why. When you are committed and you're doing something, you are being respectful to yourself because you are saying, listen, me, this is what I want to do today, and I want you to support me and help me remember that I'm going to do it. Of course, we might not actually think this the way we do, but there's a lot going on in our brain, chatter which we are not aware of, survival mechanisms which we are not aware of, patterns which we are not aware of, things which came into existence, especially between 0 and 7 years old, when we couldn't rationalize things. But of course, during the periods of our life, we just added to this. And those are basic survival mechanisms. But your brain is listening to you, and your brain can be your biggest friend or it can be your biggest enemy, depending on how you act. So let's take an example, and then I'm not talking so much about the brain, but about your physical body, which of course is linked to that same brain. If you go to a certain lesson, say you go to a step lesson. I used to love doing step lessons back in the day. I was fully dressed in braces and all that stuff. And every once in a while, I would hurt my ankle. I would twist it, and then, like within 5 or 10 minutes, I would be back on the step again. As long as there's no permanent damage, I could do it. And at first, it was about learning what do the feet do. So that's what I always said. Don't use your arms, just use your feet. Okay, so we need to understand the signals of the teacher who's standing in front of the class, and then we need to be able to go to the left or the right or the front or the back at the same time. So you learn all these little clues, and then at some point you start to use your hands and so on. So you get better and better at it. At first, you might just stay low. At some point, you may start to jump and do like these these circles in the air, doing turns. But the thing is, your body is acting towards what you've been giving it. So the moment that your step lesson is like more than 45 minutes or it's been taught a different way, it can completely confuse you. And for instance, when I was doing spinning lessons, and I love spinning lessons, most of them would do then like 45, 50 minutes. But there were some out there and they would actually stretch it like 5 or 10 minutes longer. And I could literally say on the minute, oh my God, I'm not used to those 5 minutes extra. And that was working hard for me to get adjusted to it because the body was adjusted to precisely that time. The brain knew that's when we have to give everything and that's when it's going to stop. So we have to know what to expect. And when we tell ourselves this is what we are going to do, this is what we are going to do this day in the week, and this is how long it's going to take, then our body and our mind can adjust. I've also been doing a lot of drumming lessons for like 2 decades, I think. And when it comes to drumming, you use both your hands and you use both your feet. And quite honestly, it's a mind game. Um, I prefer to actually say something else, but well, I'm live here, so let's not. But then you know what I how I feel about it. And the moment that you change this little thing, That's when things go haywire. And then you have to tell your brain, no, it's actually what I just did. It's just, one moment later, one count later, that's all. Or I just did the same with my hand. Now I'm doing it with my foot. You know the pattern. But that's not the way your body is programmed, how your nerve system is programmed, how everything literally is wired. So it says, well, you know what? Um, this is going to work for me, and then you have to push through. You have to push through, and you have to keep on doing it. So again, your brain can be your best friend, and it can be your worst enemy, and it remembers. So it also remembers when you are not true to yourself, when you don't push yourself, when you don't go on. It remembers. And at some point, if you say, I'm going to do this, but you always broke the promise to yourself, then sure you are. And it's not going to help you to get there. The next one on the list would be find serious support with a similar why. And why do I say serious support? Because I'm talking about, for instance, a group who has that same goal. To give you an example, I'm part of this program called Movement Makers. And Movement Makers, which by the way is from Evan Carmichael, we get together like every 2 weeks, and then he has also the Insider Readers group, and they get together like once a week. Well, Evan has come up with this great challenge. It's a monthly challenge. This month is the theme consistency, and he said, "Okay, I want you to get to the level I am. I want you to be able to earn money with your passion. So I'm going to get you out there. Each month we pick a theme and we talk about what it means to you. So your personal story. So you do your own video, and you also work with a number of other people. You do collaborations, as we call them. And primarily, we work with people from that same group. So they know what's at stake, because if you do the three collaborations, you do your own video and you also have a handout, then you get listed on Clubhouse at the end of the month. And of course, it's always nice to have a reward or of something, even if it's only being on stage during Clubhouse, and even if it's only for a few minutes. But more importantly, and that's what I noticed, was the first time I did it, it was like running a race. Now I'm like, oh, I can do it easily. I've done it so many times now that, it's a walk in the park. And it's also the result of me going live twice a week and having seen others do it even more often. So it's when you do it consistently, it simply gets easier. But those people, they understand why I'm doing it. So if I ask them for certain support, they will do it. Now, of course, the question is what's at stake for them? So do they have a similar why? And that brings me to the next one, and that's find someone who's been there and done that. And well, quite simply, Evan Carmichael is one of those people who has been there and done it. And the great thing about this guy is he's still accessible. So, like I said, you can join him for a program, and then every 2 weeks there's a group session going on, and you can get your questions out there, you can get them answered. So it's all about how much you participate. There's another program going on, and then there's the weekly. But apart from that, there is his gaming channel. And I can tell you, the first time I went on that gaming channel, first of all, I'm not a gamer. Well, maybe for things like Sudoku and Free Cell, but not the other ones. I don't know much about games at all. I know there are PlayStations out there. I know there's a PlayStation 4, maybe there's even a 5, but that's about it. So at first I was like, yeah, but he's gaming, and he's gaming with someone else, and that someone else is Drew. And how can I interrupt them? But that's what they say. They say it's okay to come here live and ask us questions. So I was like, okay, that's cool. So I started carefully asking those first questions, like, okay, so how do I do this, that, and the other? And basically, I would continue on with where I left off during the 2 weekly sessions. I would have this question which was lingering on in my mind, and I would be like, okay, so how? How do I do it? But as a result, if I asked him something during his gaming channel, and especially when I did it more often, how could I not do something with his advice? It's not respectful to ask and not do anything with it. It's just not. So, as a result, I started implementing it. And now whenever I have the possibility and I know he's going live, I try to be there as well. I see it as a way to work on certain things. And I've noticed that the things he's saying, it's increasing. I'm improving all the things that he's saying to do. And actually, I'm sort of becoming known as the expert on certain things in our own movement makers group. So that's kind of funny. But again, it comes down to respect. Then the sixth thing, find an accountability partner. And before you say, but weren't you talking about finding a group, people with a similar why? Yes, but this accountability partner doesn't have to have your motivation. He or she doesn't even have to know about what it is you're doing. So, for instance, normally on a weekly basis, I go visit a friend and we talk about our job related issues, of course, also about our personal things. But she has always been there over the years to support me when I went to a fair, when I was giving presentations about massages and massage techniques. And nowadays we talk about other things which have to do with personal growth, what we run into against, all that stuff. And it's funny because I don't know for how long it's been over a decade that we're doing this, possibly a decade and a half, and a lot of things have changed. But we still try to get together every week, and it depends a little bit on how busy we are, what the day has brought us. Um, a number of times I fall asleep, and other times because she has little kids, they bring something home from school, and that's always a good reason to say, you know what, I'm going to skip a week and then I'll come back since I'm not into kids. As in, I don't have any children. It's not that I don't want any children, I don't have them. So she is basically sort of my accountability partner. And I have to say it worked quite well. She will ask me about certain things, how they're going. And we like to improve ourselves. I guess that's it. And last but not least, and this is an interesting one, create your own virtual accountability partner. And I started doing this when I figured out that masterminds sounded very lovely and very nice. But if you're on a different level than the other ones are and you have a different angle than the other ones do, that's not going to work. So, of course, getting back to the previous point, it's nice if you have an accountability partner, which also could be a coach, someone you pay for. Usually, when you pay for something, then you want to get results. When it's free, you usually don't. bother as much. But when that's not there or it's not helping you enough, then you can introduce to yourself a what I call a virtual accountability partner. So basically, it's sort of the super ego who takes control of everything, who's not very emotional, and if if you can do it for yourself and you got this virtual accountability partner in place, so it's accountability partner that doesn't exist, but because you've created it, it knows about what it is you want to do, and you can use pictures, from someone you think, okay, maybe a movie star or someone that you think, or drawing, like this one could actually represent that virtual accountability partner. Put it on your phone. It's like setting the alarm using certain words. And at some point, you might notice that when you said, this is what needs to be done, and you're not doing it, that you are actually being addressed. Like, okay, you said you wanted to do this. So you have two choices. Either these are the consequences. So you talk with your accountability partner about what was going to happen if you didn't do it and what the consequences would be. Or it might just say, you know what? You're ignoring me anyway, so why should I be here? And that means you're left on your own. And is that something you want, or is that something you do not want? Well, that's something to consider and to think about. So I've noticed that ever since I got the virtual accountability partner, it has really worked for me very well. There are a couple of things which I add every now and then to the list. Some things have to do with the daily chores, and some things have to do with actually getting out there. It all depends on my mood. So I'm a little bit of a chaotic person, and as a result, I tend to forget certain things, or I'm like, not now, let's not do it. So when I didn't have the virtual accountability partner and I was having this discussion with myself, um, I was so good at I'll do it later. All those excuses didn't add up, and the result was it didn't make me any more believable. But when I introduced a virtual accountability partner, he was actually showing up on my phone. That was a whole different ballgame because every time I was scrolling, I was actually looking at the picture of the virtual accountability partner. And no, that didn't work. Or actually, it did work very well because as a result, I started doing things. And, you know, we would have like these little conversations, which basic, of course, I was having with myself, but the conversations would be like, okay, yeah, you did a good job, and I'm proud of you. And sometimes that's what you need. You need someone to tell you did good, the pat on your back. So, those are a few things to consider when it comes to consistency. And, the funny thing is that a lot of people, and I didn't know this, a lot of people actually told me that I'm the one who's being very consistent. And I was like, who? Me? Really? But, thinking about it more and more, they are right. And of course, sometimes you have to look at role models. No, scratch that. Role models are very important. The role models are showing you what you can actually achieve and get done. So when we're talking about future vision boards, include those role models, maybe even meeting them, see which character traits they have that you want to adopt, and of course, which they have, which you do not want to adopt, and then change it. So you can make or create the perfect persona that you want to be to achieve that dream, that big goal, that why. So in September last year, when the challenges started, um, Zen Man also started doing his own shows 3 days in a row every week. And I felt like supporting him. You know, he had talked about the book from Evan Carmichael, and I was like, I like that guy. So I'm going to go out there and support him. And it was also a good way. We would be on the panel, and it was like we were at the start of what he was doing. That's what it felt like. And it was nice to be around people who were thinking similar things. And two of them got a show together now, so that basically says a lot. And I was looking at it, and the more I was there, the more it was like I can do that myself. I can have my own show. I can tell my own things with different angle. I mean, he's the confidence coach, and I'm the one about speaking up, speaking out, and getting people to share their voice. And I have to tell you, that's a whole different ball game, and that's okay. But seeing him doing it and then telling that same group, I'm going to do it too, that made all the difference. So I said in January, okay, I'm going to do this. And that's when I started doing it. And I haven't skipped one single broadcast ever since. In February, Michael asked me, or he asked me in January to do a show with him. So since February, I haven't missed one single show with Michael. And yeah, sometimes one of us can't make it. That happens. But we let the show go on. That's the way it is. And if it means that I have to do it on my own, that means I do it. And if it means he has to do it on his own, that's the same way. We are very adamant about getting it out there. And the same applies to me being here on Wednesdays. So the funny thing is, people now know me as someone who is consistent because of all the questions I've been asking Evan on his gaming channel and also during the live. And actually asking him, can you review my channel? Which was also linked to that similar question when he was doing his live and he had some time left. I realized like he has taken a look at my channel. And if I want to ever ask him something again, it better has changed because otherwise I can't do it. And that's another reason why I became more and more consistent. Then there's also the why. And like I said, I started out local. And now I just want to go global. I want to reach people all over the world because I know there are people out there who are not heard, not seen, not understood, need to be felt included, and they don't know how. So, for those people, here I am. And also for the people who do feel included, but still could use a little, thing when it comes to be heard and be seen. I'm here. So on this channel on Wednesday, I talk about things which are related to speaking up. Sometimes I talk about PTSD, sometimes talk about addiction, and today I'm talking about consistency. If you want to know more about consistency, there will be a link shortly on here in the description, which will lead you to a handout having to do with consistency. Up till that time, there will be a link referring to a free course of mine, which is about speaking up and speaking out. And then, of course, you can always find me on Instagram, leave a comment, and I will get back to you because I believe it's so important to have our message out there. And especially when we do not know what to do, and we need a little bit of guidance, then just come and join me. And like I did on when I was at the Freedom Festival, I said to the people, you don't have to be on camera. I can also be on camera myself, but I'll listen to you. I repeat questions. I'll translate them because I normally talk in English, but I live in the Netherlands, so we speak Dutch over there. So I said, I'll translate it for you if needed. Some needed it, a lot of them didn't need it because a lot of Dutch people actually speak English. And so I got to address them and I got to talk about a number of very important things. I'm here for you. I want to leave a legacy for those who need that voice. So find me and be a guest on here, or just, share something you want to get addressed. And, it's those little things that people are experiencing, which are not so little, which are big things, which are so important to share. The things when it comes to bullying, the things when it comes to trauma, understanding what it's like. And that's what I'm there for. So I'll see you again next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe because that's what I'm here for. And then you won't miss out on another show. Normally, I'm here same time, same day. And in between, you can find me on Instagram.
Oh my, walking and sitting can be such a challenge at times, but I made it. I did the live.